All right, so let's just jump right into it. Hi guys, we got a couple starting to join here. We're just getting started. Okay, so we're just gonna jump right into it. We've got Erik here. He is the son of the founder of Xtrema Cookware. I am super excited, guys, to just have this talk tonight. Cookware is just a huge question that I get a lot. How do you tell the difference between various brands? We're going to be covering all that tonight. So Erik, I'm so glad to have you here. Why don't you just start out by talking about just your position, what you do at Xtrema, and I know you're kind of a cookware nerd, self-proclaimed. So why don't you just say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as you said, I'm the son of the founder of Xtrema Cookware. So my father has worked for just over 40 years in the ceramics and glass industry, working for Corning Glass. And then obviously starting this company in 2004 and then going when we launched in 2007. So I've kind of been able to be there for the entire process, and seeing it kind of go from idea to R&D to actual physical product and prototypes to launching our e-commerce store in 2007. So yeah, I have a very unique perspective, even more so than anybody else who's been in the company, just because it is my father, and I've kind of been able to see some of the behind the scenes. But in that, I've gotten kind of an up close and personal view of business, obviously, but also just how our product is made. I've had the ability to travel to where our product is made multiple times with my father, so to kind of be a part of that.
That's awesome.
This wholesale, from the actual making of it to the actual starting of the business, the starting of the idea, and then kind of being now, which is what my position is to, social media marketing and just working with our influencers, our ambassadors, and things of that like. So kind of doing all of those things while still, kind of having a lot of that experience, just getting that kind of up close and personal with my father. But yeah, so now really just looking to kind of connect and educate is really a lot of what my focus is. Especially with doing things like this, connecting with people like yourself who have similar interests and have similar platforms to try to educate in the non-toxic the product space. And that's kind of what I do a lot with creating content, with kind of focusing with our influencers, with our team internally. How are we going to continue to educate about not just our cookware, to sell more of our cookware, but to just educate people about actually buying products, cookware, what to look for in the myriad of non-toxic products that exist.
Yes. Yeah, let's talk about that, because I so much appreciate, and I as my audience knows, just have a next level standard when it comes to researching things. And I'm a big proponent of really researching the brand and sorting through a lot of the misinformation out there. So I appreciate that's something that is on your radar, when searching through the different terminology, if you will, with non-toxic cookware. And so, I'd love to get your perspective on, what is greenwashing, what's not, what should we be looking out for? What things should we be avoiding? And I'd love to hit the topic too of just the ceramic coated versus, 100% ceramic. So go ahead.
I think greenwashing kind of falls into a couple of different categories. I think that as we've been more educated about products and kind of seen that evolve, especially over the last 20 years within cookware, since things like DuPont and Teflon and PFOA, there's been kind of a lot of things that have been uncovered and exposed. I think I like to put greenwashing into a couple different categories, meaning I think certainly there are companies that are aware of the effects of their products that are purposefully and are like sitting in meetings and are saying like, we know this is a problem, but how can we like gloss over it? I think we
Mm.
see with some of the documentaries that have come out. We've seen that with just some of the, you know, actual testing that has come out, some of the just reporting that has come out, that there are companies that knowingly still create products that are harmful, and they're trying to greenwash or market in a way that's saying, you know, no, these are safe, these are non-toxic, this is fine. And then I think where we have a huge opportunity is kind of in what I would say is the second category, is just companies that have a good intention to make a new and innovative product that don't know about the education that is provided on a you know, on a channel like this, or in the various different amount of research that's been done by doctors, by lab scientists, that is saying like, maybe there should be some additional testing that you're doing, maybe there should be additional R&D that you're doing, maybe there should be additional things that you're looking into that are only made aware by people speaking up to these companies, and then those companies kind of looking at what they're internally, and then changing things. So I think the first is intentional, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that people are starting to become aware of that and call that out. So I think, you know, companies are starting to change their language, but I think in changing their language, there are still companies that don't really know about some of these, you know, the depth to some of these words like non-toxic,
Yeah.
toxic, chemicals, you know, even things like leaching and extraction and natural and safe. Like there's so much nuance to words, that I think some of them are used intentionally, and I think some of them are just used to market a product that the company believes is safe. Um, and the only way they would find out that it's not is by people that are actually speaking to them and saying, hey, I just want to make you aware of, you know, these tests, or hey, can you tell us a little bit more about this? And I
Mm-hmm.
think the more that happens, the more that companies will just start to kind of move the needle. Um, and I think that's a really important conversation about specifically your community, but also just these communities in general. I think there can be a lot of animosity that's built up within the
Yeah.
non space, because I think people have been really burned by some companies or some lack of information. And so I think even the way that we present findings, education to these companies is huge, because the best case scenario is not for companies to be canceled, or like, how amazing would it be if a company that had, you know, this kind of like intentional money making, we don't care about health, turned that around and was using their resources for something that was amazing, you know, like
Yeah.
that's the win. That's the win for education, is to be able to say, we don't want a company with millions of dollars, say in research and funding and stuff like that, to go away. We want them to say, we were wrong, I'm sorry, we're going to do
Yes.
to make it right, and then we're going to produce a product that's better, and we're going to have more transparency. And I
Yeah.
think that's starting to change because of people like yourself, because of people like your community who are starting to reach out to brands and say, hey, listen, I'm not trying to attack you, but I want to know more information. Have you thought about this? Have you read this article? I think that's huge.
It's so true, and honestly, that's actually, just to jump in for 1 second, that is one of my favorite things about what I get to do with the platform, is I get to bring those tough questions to companies and say, hey, you know, I'm curious about the heavy metals that you potentially have in your matcha or whatever. And, you know, some, especially smaller brands, it's happened so many times where they'll be like, we didn't even know about that. Oh my gosh, what brand should we use? And so I'll tell them a different brand and they're like, we just switched to this. Oh my goodness, thank you so much for hooking me up. Like, it's seriously really cool to get to it, you know, not bash the brand like you said, but to be able to say, you could do better in this. Like, here's research I found, you know. And then I've even had websites like change their terminology and what they decided to say on their website because of different research I presented them with. Like, it's really, really cool. So I like that you have that mindset.
Yeah, and I think terms are changing. I mean, like when we first launched our cookware, we were in the first major publication we were in 2007 was National Geographic, and they did a green living issue, and that was the buzzword in 2007. It was green. Everything.
Mm-hmm.
Are your products green? And so we had that in our language, but green is so vague, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't use that anymore. And so as a company, you know, we use different terminology now than we used in 2007. One, because things are changing, but two, because as we start to understand more about the industry, about different terminology, we start to get more specific in how we communicate things. And I think that's just a natural, kind of change that comes with culture, with words, with what words mean. And so there is some grace as far as those terms, but I would encourage people, specifically talking about greenwashing, you know, really look into terms. I think it's similar to how we read food labels, you know, something like natural flavoring, you know, and that could literally be anything, you know, because like everything's in nature, you know, so like terms like that are used are fine as long as there's qualifiers, you know.
Yeah.
Like if a company's using stuff like safe, like our coating is safe, or you know, our coating is made with the best intentions, you know, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's very different than saying our coating is safe and here's a link to our test results page.
Yes, you need something to back it up.
Yeah, and so strictly looking at words, I think there's so many articles out there that are just saying like, here are the 15 greenwashing terms to avoid.
Yeah.
You know, and if you just look for those, you're not going to buy anything from anybody who has a non-toxic brand, because they all use some similar terms. The difference is the companies that use those terms and then also say, and here's our test results to say why it's non-toxic or why it's safe or
Absolutely.
why it is eco-friendly or things like that. It's not necessarily 100% case that it's just like, oh, they're using these terms to try to get me to buy their product and that's it, you know.
Right.
Greenwashing, the heart of true greenwashing is using those products on packaging and marketing to market something that's really not at its core.
Yeah. Yeah, that's well said. So along those lines, I know this is a big question that a lot of people have when we are looking at cookware. What are the things that we should be looking for and what are the things that we should be avoiding? What tips do you have to make that process easier?
I think it is a big question. I think it starts with if you're talking about brand, I think it starts with really doing a deep dive into websites. I think you can learn so much from somebody's website, how available information is, like product testing, like warranty information. On a lot of sites, a lot of those kind of deeper informational pieces or kind of questions can be like very hidden. 14 clicks to get to, hidden deep in, sub pages and stuff like that. How open are companies about, things like testing, I think it's huge. Things like education in the space. You, especially now with Instagram and social media, you can see who's using their cookware and their platform. You know, like there is an integrity, a history of integrity with even people that would call themselves our affiliates, who would say, I've been using this product for 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. We can do that. Research is available for us, for people that put out unbiased reviews. We can kind of see that history, and we can look at who they follow and what other products they endorse. I think really looking into brand is important. Looking into how long the brand has been around is important. I think in the cookware space, I think especially when we talk about ceramic coated, there's a lot of new technology in the ceramic coated space that is not supported by length of time.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of claims that are not supported by, the actual when the company was founded. So, and that's something that we've even talked about, like with our warranty. Like now we are 14-year-old company. So when we say that there's a 10-year warranty and we're holding a prototype in our hands that I've been cooking with for 16 years, we have customers that still have products that are 10 years old. So that's very different when you're looking into, okay, we just launched last year and we have a 10-year warranty on our product.
That's true.
And so that matters. I would say materials, if you're looking into cookware, really, really look into materials. I think there's a lot of articles and blogs about performance, cost, kind of the fancy stuff, recipes, chefs. I think really looking into materials, looking into things like, what is this type of metal? There's so many variations within each subgroup of aluminum, copper, stainless steel, cast iron, ceramic, stoneware. I mean, those are kind of the main categories, glass. But within that, there are so many different kind of subgroups.
Right.
So typing kind of more longer form things into Google and other search engines to be able to say, like, all right, what are the different types of glass cookware, and then kind of getting those terms and looking into those specifically is, I think, the way to kind of find more educational information. Like if you were searching about Teflon, a lot of the articles that are going to come up first are more like opinion pieces, like Teflon's the worst or something like that. But it's really not saying why is it bad?
Right.
So typing in something like, how is Teflon made? Or, what's the difference between PTFE and PFOA? Or like, and then once you get into that article, you see some other things and you can say, like, all right, how is a coating made? How do they put it actually on the metal? And like all that stuff, like that you wouldn't understand if you just read somebody's opinion piece or even a blog website. And I think just knowledge of the space in general. I think what a lot of influencers like yourself are doing a really good job at is just giving people tools that can be transferred across multiple different industries. So if you're really into reading food labels and you're really into researching about non-toxic cleaning products, the same tools you're going to use for that are going to be the same tools you use for cookware.
Right.
It just may be a little bit harder because I think cookware is still not quite there yet on the level that products are. And rightly so, because products, you're talking about things that are more readily, I would say, more readily toxic, meaning they're going to be things that you are either breathing in, eating, or absorbing. So yes, like reading food labels is probably more important than knowing how to buy cookware. But the same things you're going to use for that and the same analysis that you're going to do for that is the same thing that you would do for looking for a good cookware brand.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of, and I think, my people who have followed me for a while know that I'm not as into reading individual labels as I am brand research as a whole, because like you said, there's so many things additional to merely ingredients or a product or materials, in a cookware that is more important. You're missing pieces of the puzzle when you're merely looking at that one thing. So brand researching as a whole, contacting a company, taking the time to do that, as much as it does take longer, which is frustrating, it's worth it in the long run, because then it's like, well, I trust the company as a whole. I can trust everything that they're saying, and I know that their products are, are really good and good quality. So with that said, as far as the ceramic coated, this is another, topic that's really big, but ceramic coated versus 100% ceramic. What is the problem with ceramic coated?
Well, ceramic and I mean, naturally, ceramic and metal are not friends. Like if you tried to kind of mold them together, they wouldn't combine nearly as easily as other materials would. So that's why there's no, there's been no real long term like coating that we've seen really like withstand the test of time. I think uh, the coating that was the best as far as durability was the coatings that are now banned that had PFOA in it and PTFE, and they lasted. I mean, some of them lasted 7-8 years. New ceramic coatings, there's been studies done that say it's probably about 15% of that, which would land you right about like the 9 months to 2 years mark. So there are various different, and this is kind of where it gets interesting because, there's various different like proprietary like formulas, but in general, ceramic coatings are generally like all the same. Everybody has their kind of a little different brownie mix, but the feedback that you get over the use of these products, no matter how high end or low end it is typically 1 to 3 years is the compromise.
Yeah.
And I think just from a general consumer standpoint, the number one reason that that's not good is just for like sustainability.
Yes.
Like if you're purchasing cookware, like multiple times within like a 10-year period, that is a lot. Like that is like, if you're talking about, I mean, and we have a lot of people come to us, and that's their question is like, hey, I just used this pan and I paid $120 for it, and like the coating's coming off and like my food's sticking, not what I paid for. It's outside the warranty. Like, are you guys ceramic coated? Like, are you guys different? And we tell them, yeah, we're like completely different. But I think that's a lot of the initial, outside of like the leaching and the coating coming into your food and stuff like that, is just a general consumer. Like, I don't want to be buying cookware every 2 years. And I think just, we wouldn't do that with like a new car. If you're just buying a new car and ditching it every year, like when you're talking about sustainability, there's something to be said about purchasing cookware that is going to last a while, not a lifetime. And I think secondary and a little bit, a deeper dive leads you to, okay, what is actually, what's actually in the coating? What is the life of the coating? How easily is this going to come off with normal wear and tear? And then what's underneath the coating, which is typically almost always aluminum. And if there is stainless underneath, there's typically an aluminum core, because stainless is not a great heat. And a lot of those aluminum cores, right? It's not like the core of an apple, which is like, it takes a couple bites to get to the middle. You're talking about, some aluminum cores that are in stainless pans are, the stainless on top is only like the width of a fingernail. So you're talking, all right, did you buy aluminum cookware or did you buy ceramic coated cookware? A lot of cases, people just think they're buying ceramic cookware, and they don't have an understanding of the fact that it's really just a coating that's sprayed on top of metal that will come off. It's not an if, it's a when. So I think understanding what you're buying, if you already own ceramic coated cookware, I think understanding how to use it so it you can use it in a way that would be less toxic, meaning not using high heats, not using metal utensils to encourage any scraping, using it as properly advertised, reducing that the potential for toxins or for leaching or for scraping. But if you're in the market for ceramic cookware, I wouldn't say that ceramic coated cookware is ceramic cookware. And that's something that we're constantly trying to educate on, because we are ceramic cookware. So we haven't just been able to say we're ceramic cookware. We have to go out of our way to be able to describe that we are 100% pure ceramic cookware, meaning you chop our cookware in half. There's ceramic on the bottom, in the middle, and on the top. Like, it's 100% ceramic. It is a product that is made from inorganic materials found in the earth. It is made of, a clay-like substance that you've probably used in the past in like art class in elementary school, or if you've ever baked a clay, baked pottery or something like that. Like, that's the type of ceramics that we're talking about. Ceramics that go into a kiln and are fired for long periods of time in order to harden and to sit and to rest. It's a little bit heavier. It's not, like a typical light frying pan. And so when we talk about ceramic, it's 100% ceramic, meaning that it doesn't behave like typical cookware that you're used to, which is mainly designed around convenience and cost and cleaning, which is interesting. I think, especially in the early 2000s, late 1990s, when the infomercials were just like on full blast. Cookware was real non-stick and ceramic coated, and cookware was really designed around cleaning more than cooking. Like, you won't have to clean this. You can kind of not cook correctly and not have to deal with some of the consequences. Like, it's not really built around
that's interesting
longevity. It's really built around, like, you don't have to use your dishwasher because you just wipe it after. Like, how many of those infomercials did you see? And so the conversation that we're trying to change around cookware is cookware should really be designed for health first,
right?
And then whatever else comes after that is just the cherry on top. Versatility, performance, cost, durability, longevity. I think cookware has become kind of most focused on those things, instead of being focused on, okay, what is it made of? How is it made? How long is it? And hopefully we start to spark that conversation, and other brands to kind of make a push for that.
And that really follows the beauty industry as well, because I mean, it was convenience and performance above what the actual ingredients were, and that's the change that we're seeing in the beauty industry. Then is we're caring also about the ingredients, but we still want the high performance and the high quality products. So that's very interesting. I did.
So is no glaze?
I want to get to that question there. And for those of you who are watching right now, there's going to be a Q&A at the end, but feel free to ask questions throughout and we'll try to get to those as well.
That's a great question, though. I think a lot of people think that because we don't have a coating, we're uncoated. So when you look at like earthenware and like clay pot cooking, like you see that in like really popular in like South America and even in Asia. That is not 100% of the time, but a lot of that is uncoated. And that can be some of the most toxic stuff that you can cook in, because it's low fired and uncoated, or low fired and not glazed. So, and typically you're cooking things in there for a while with that kind of style of ceramic cooking. And so when we say like ceramic cookware, or ceramic, there are multiple different grades and levels of ceramic. And it typically has to do with what temperature you're firing it at. So the more brittle it is, the lower the temperature that it's fired at. So when you think something like a potted plant, or like terracotta pottery, or if you ever had like hand painted pottery or something like that, very brittle because it's fired at, you know, like 500 to 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Our glaze is different than a coating because some of these ceramic coatings, one, have alternate materials that would not be kind of classified as what we would say is like ceramic, like inorganic materials that are typically used with ceramic. A lot of times there can be, and some of this we don't know because it's proprietary, but it kind of behaves almost like a plastic like substance. There's various different like glues, dyes, polymers. So you can just see the difference actually on the pan, from a coating to a glaze. But also our glaze is fired at a much higher temperature than the coatings that you'd see on ceramic coated. So ceramic coatings typically live in between like 350 to 700, that they're either sprayed and dried and at those temperatures, or there can kind of be like a different process where it's like put on and like dipped, and then it's dried at those temperatures. Our cookware is fired at 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, which is very different, which is why our cookware is as versatile as it is. Why it can go on the stove, in the freezer, on the grill, in the dishwasher. It can go in the oven. Like, it's because, you know, the temperature at which it's fired is the temperature to which, you know, chemical reactions can start to happen. That's why you see like those warnings where it's like, don't cook with our cookware over 500 degrees, because if you cook with it over 500 degrees, their coating starts to break down because it was probably fired at 500 degrees. So if you cook with our cookware over 500 degrees, right, our glaze is not going to start to wear down because it's fired at 2,500 degrees. So it becomes permanently bonded to the surface, meaning outside of breaking our cookware in half, or taking a hammer to it, you're not going to abrasively scratch or rub it off, because it's harder than the materials that you would use to scrape or rub it off with, outside of like using like a diamond or something like that. But that's why if you use like steel wool, which we don't usually recommend, just like cosmetically, because some people don't like to see that, you will see some what look like to be scratches on the bottom of your cookware. If you take baking soda after that and you just really scrub it with like an abrasive pad, those will come off, because when you use metal to try to scratch our cookware, the metal comes off of the instrument that you're using, and that's the residue. It's not damaging the coating at all, because our ceramic material is actually harder than the metal that's used, that would be used to scratch it. And so we recommend against using metal utensils, because I think a lot of people, especially with a cookware like this that is an investment piece, they don't want some of those cosmetic blemishes and stuff like that on there. But we've taken this, you know, I have a product that I'm cooking with that's 16 years old, and you know, some marks like that happen and are inevitable, but you can brush those off, especially metal marks, because our glaze is permanently bonded on there, and it's non-scratch, because of how hard it is. So categorically different, but you can see where like little word differentials, which is why we try our hardest to say glaze and not coating, because a coating can come off, a glaze, especially at how high we fire it, cannot. And it's also made differently. It's made with different materials. Bonding ceramic to ceramic is completely different than bonding ceramic to metal, because they're different substances, they're different surfaces. They're not as good of friends as ceramic is with ceramic. And so when you talk about a ceramic based glaze on ceramic, it becomes one. You know, that doesn't happen with metal. It bonds to it, but they're still very, very much separate, which is why you can kind of scrape it off.
That's interesting.
question, whoever asked that.
Yeah, so it is glazed, not
Yes.
coated. It's glazed.
If you're buying ceramics, you want to buy glazed ceramics. If you have, pottery that you've bought, or even clay pot that you've bought and that is unglazed, I mean, you have to make sure that you've gotten that from somebody who's reputable, who has test results, because that can be very, very toxic when you're talking low fired, low grade, unglazed ceramics. And so the reason why a lot of these products don't exist is because our process is very different. We're not competing with other 100% ceramic brands for this reason. It's because of our process is different, because we fire it so high. Most ceramics that you use to bake with and stuff like that live closer to the 1,000-degree mark. Ours is over 2,000. So
big difference. Yeah. I want to get more to what sets your cookware apart and, some details with that. But I did want to touch on just one thing, going back to what you were talking about with the ceramic coated versus the 100% ceramic. Just to recap for those who didn't hear that, basically you were saying that the coating is extremely thin. You said it's it's about what your fingernail is, right?
Yes.
So
I was talking about, and some of them are different. Like some brands just use one layer of coating.
Yeah.
I think a new kind of terminology is like, we've coated it 3 times.
Okay. Good to know.
Different times. But you're talking about, these coatings aren't very thick when you're talking about like
right
width. You're talking like millimeters,
So the issue
yeah.
then becomes when it's scraping off, which happens, pretty quickly. I mean, my experience with ceramic coated is definitely within like 2 months. It starts, 2 or 3 months, and that's not even putting it on high. So you said some tips to try to reduce that would be not using metal and to try to cook it on not high settings. But yeah, so a specific question I had with it is, you said something interesting about the proprietary. It's becoming more of a thing, just that, companies are having their own recipes for that proprietary ceramic coated recipe. And I'm curious how valid you think it is when various companies won't tell you what's in it because they say the recipe is proprietary. So what exactly is going on there? And is that sort of like in the beauty industry where it's like fragrance and sometimes it's okay. Sometimes though, it means there's a ton of ingredients they're trying to hide, what would you say about that?
Well, I think that comes into what you're talking about with brand. I think if you go on somebody's website and there's no test results, and it's really hard to kind of make your way into some of the more details, like what really is your warranty, like what really is your return policy. Like some of these things are really hard to find. Like you definitely get that sense more with some websites and brands than you do with others, where you're like, I just can't feel like, I just don't feel like they want me to have any problems with their cookware, or they want me to know anything about, their process, like their About Us page. Like it's, you don't see any faces, and like you don't see any like history of their brand, and like, and then there is like stuff like that. I think you definitely like raise some flags, but I think the proprietary thing is real, and I think it is a good and a bad thing. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's allowed some companies to function by abiding by what they have to do with the test results that are available to them, through things like Proposition 65. Like a lot of these companies are doing that testing to show that they don't leach lead or cadmium. But there's also other testing, right, that's not required for like aluminum cookware doesn't have to test for how much aluminum their cookware leaches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which we would say is a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no requirement for that to happen. And so we've tested our cookware for aluminum, nickel, cobalt, other metals that we don't have to. And so when you come to us and you say, hey, what are the materials that you use in your product? that's different, I think, than a company who's not providing any of that and then saying, and everything that we're doing is proprietary.
Mm-hmm.
Questions. And so for us, there is some sense with that like what we're doing, we feel like is one of one. And if we were to give that out, we don't, we trust our process, and we trust the people that are making our cookware and the actual recipe that we have. But we also know that what we've created is different, and
Mm-hmm.
we have perfected the ceramic brownie mix. So
Mm-hmm.
and so to give that out, right, is different than, say, the beauty industry with labeling. You know, we don't have that requirement. I think some of that is for our good and for our protection of our actual
Mm-hmm.
formula. So if somebody doesn't come in and say, "Oh, you're using that? I didn't know that. Maybe I'll try that with my ceramics." And then,
Right.
but I also think that's directly correlated to how much information are they giving about things like product testing, and that can really tell you a lot about, you know, is this company just trying to shy away from all those questions, or are they really just trying to protect their formula
Yeah.
and doing everything outside of, you know, telling you exactly what's in their product to show you that their product is free of these things that could be potentially toxic to you. So I think it's like a double-edged sword.
It's true.
Um, and I think it's changing. You know, I think as regulations change, that's good. I think the thing that's always going to be best is just companies that care about this doing it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can, like, if you were making aluminum cookware and you wanted to show that your product doesn't leach dangerous levels of aluminum, you can go out and get an aluminum test. But there's the chance that it's leaching a lot, and you might have to now change your product. You know, so like you can do that, um, and I think you're seeing that happen, especially in beauty and products, where it's not the government coming in and saying, "All right, we have this new testing." It's the
Mm-hmm.
company saying, like, "Well, we're not waiting for you. We're going to go beyond. We're going to go to our own lab, and we're going to have."
Right. Right.
And I think that does
Yeah.
much more push industry forward than just sitting around and lobbying and waiting for government standards to change wholesale. And so that's kind of what we've done with our testing is like,
Yeah.
all right, you know, we don't have any fears of our cookware leaching these metals, but we'll test for them anyway, and we'll put them up on our website so you can see them.
Yeah. So that's a big theme you're continually saying and be looking out for when you're researching companies is, are they releasing the test results for the safety in those leachings, which is, that is really huge. One thing I did want to touch on, so we're, almost out of time here, about the difference, just in your cookware versus others is, I know a question I get a lot is that you guys, manufacture in China, and there are some concerns with quality wise there. So what do you have to say to those who are maybe potentially concerned about that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a question that we get a lot. I think that in our search for making a product like this, I know the initial idea that that my father had in his head was something that would be as usable and as versatile as ceramics is. Meaning, you know, we use ceramics to bake, we use ceramics to serve, but really up until our company kind of bringing those things together, we didn't really use it on top of the stove in a way that was reliable
Mhm.
and had some sense of durability. Meaning, you know, clay pot cooking is obviously very popular. I would say more popular in cultures outside of, the United States. But we uh, typically that's a song and a dance because it's very brittle, and so to be able to bring that into it, when we were searching for places to go and to do that, uh, the quality that we were getting from the factories that we approached in China was just very different. I think for a couple reasons. One, because of the history that ceramics has there, like 10,000 years. You're not talking like, it's interesting when you go like overseas to cultures like that, and you travel to Asia and they have stuff that's like, you know, from like 1024, you know, like, hey, here's like this well that's been in our community for like, we think in like 250 years in the United States, you know, they've been making ceramics, pottery, and stuff like that for 10,000 years. And so the cultures that we, you know, kind of were walking in over there, the factories that we approached, you know, there's some communities over there that have 90% of their workers that are working in ceramics. Like you have whole entire communities and towns that just make ceramics. So it's the general proficiency and education level that somebody walks around with ceramics in those communities far outweighs the availability that would be in places like the United States. And so when we actually had product made in the prototype stage and we started testing it, we started doing testing on it, we started doing, you know, leaching testing on it and stuff like that. And we actually brought it to market and it started to do well. We started to think, all right, well, what if we made, what if we could get somebody to make it in the United States? And we went and approached a couple of different companies, you know, really high tech ceramic companies that would be able to essentially, like, you know, we thought reproduce our cookware, and just didn't really come close, and didn't really have the ability to produce it at the scale that we wanted to. It's a handmade product. Like our product is made with a process by hand by people that are you know, knowledgeable about this. It's not something like a robot can do or a conveyor belt can do. We do have, you know, obviously high-end machinery and stuff like that, but it's touched by hands of people that know about ceramics, that know about drying and glazing and firing and, you know, that whole process and humidity and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of personal touch that goes into ceramics that just can't be learned unless, you know, these people are growing up in it. And so to see that level of detail, but also the level of quality that was coming out, we felt like we would be doing our product and our customers a disservice if we made it somewhere else that didn't quite have the quality and the standards that we had. And also just the look. Like I think outside of just the health of it, like when you get our products and, you know, that gloss on the black, you know, like that's not just something that's like really easy to produce, you know, like we don't have a process with ceramics that you make 100 pieces and 100 of them are perfect. You know, like this is a handmade product. And so, you know, to really get to a place where you're able to have that level of proficiency, is hard. And so with working with people who have done this for their entire life, you know, like since they were a kid, growing up in a ceramics factory and then, you know, doing that stuff, was really like knowledge to us. And kind of having that partnership, going over there and kind of fostering that relationship. It's been really amazing to see, you know, just the quality even like improve over the years of just getting that process nailed down and having a product that, you know, we can, you know, some ceramics, it's like 50%, you know, 50% of the ones are passing and 50% are not, you know, so that's how, you know, fragile that is. Whereas like, you know, with other kind of materials, you can be more sure of like, hey, we're going to make 100 products and 90 of them are going to be solid, you know, because you're dealing with different materials and there's a level of proficiency that you can have when you're bending or stamping out stainless that you can't have when you're firing and baking ceramics. So we feel like with China, we're going to the source of where the best ceramics are made in the entire world. And we don't think it's close, with other tests we've done, other products that we've had made. And so I think the quality in specifically to ceramics is what led us to China and what has kept us in China. I can't say that about, I mean, we do ceramics, so I can't say that about other industries or other businesses. but I know that our intentions in going there was strictly product, number one. And I think there's other brands that could make their products in the United States that probably go to China for other reasons, to make it either cheaper or to make it in a way that would benefit them better. I think our move to making it there strictly was quality and for the customer's experience to get the best. And we continue to have that conversation. We have people that they really love to buy only USA made, and if that's then maybe our cookware is not for you. But that's kind of the thinking behind it, and we've been really pleased with the results and the relationship that we have, which has been great to us. So.
And you said that you've been there personally to the various facilities in China?
Yes, multiple times. My father more so than me, but I've been there multiple times. We have somebody that is on our staff that is there, who is doing product inspection in our factory, who sees the products that go through, who sends products to testing, that comes before our product lands here. All of our shipments have to pass Prop 65 before they land here. So we have somebody that we've been able to pay that is on our staff that is over there, that is working for us, that's in the factory 24/7 when we can't be. So, but yeah, we try to get over there as much as we can, just to kind of continue that relationship, but also to kind of monitor things that are going on.
Yeah.
And things shift and grow and change. And so we have eyes, on our processes, and we're really grateful to have grown to the point where we can have somebody who's there, and somebody that we trust who's there. So that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I appreciate the due diligence in that, and that you guys have done your research, and you're not just throwing that out for various reasons, but you're understanding your line of work, and you're an expertise in your industry, which is really important, I think. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and send those in now. We're just gonna close this out in a couple minutes here, but Erik, is there anything else that you wanted to say here about just what sets your cookware apart, or anything that you didn't touch on?
I think I'll just talk a little bit to use and care. I think with 100% ceramic, I think outside of testing, the non-scratch, the non-reactive surface, the fact that it is something that is permanent, that it's not going to have fear of coming off and things like that. I think the second advantage to 100% ceramic is the versatility, meaning cookware doesn't always take part in every process, in every part of the cooking process, meaning a lot of times you just cook with your cookware and you clean it and that's it. Our cookware is multifunctional, meaning you use it with prep, with cooking, and then it's also functional on the table, meaning ceramic holds heat much more efficiently than its metal counterparts. So it may take a little bit longer to heat up, meaning when you're starting to cook on it, you're going to give it a little bit more time to heat up. But after something has been cooked in it, it will retain that heat much, much longer. But our product is also, pretty aesthetically. So bringing that to the table then kind of makes it part of all three of those processes, cooking, prep, cooking, and actually serving and eating out of, which we feel like just brings a different kind of value to your cookware when you're actually like cooking with it and then you're serving out of it. It reduces, like maybe like the amount of things that you're actually buying.
Yeah.
But it also, it also adds that value of like your cookware is kind of with you throughout the entire eating process, which is really cool, and it's functional at all of those places. But it's also something that you can bake with. Like if you our cookware, we obviously have a large product line, so we have teaware. We're trying to roll out bakeware in 2021. Like you can have all of our products, but you could also have one of our products and do a lot in one of our products. Like if you have like a 12-inch skillet, we bake cookies in our 12-inch all the time when we don't want to like make 36 cookies. Like want to make like 10. Um, we could survive with a 12-inch because you can cook with it, you can bake with it, you can serve with it. We have some people that eat salads out of their stock pots because they're like, I don't have a bowl that's big enough, so I'm just eating a huge salad out of like a 3.5 quart. So it's multifunctional. It's dishwasher safe. If you're in a pinch, we think hand washing is just the best because then you get to really, you're kind of using your hands with something that's made by hand. You're also able to handle it, in a way that might be safer than, some dishwasher potential accidents. But it's multifunctional in those ways. But it's also durable in the sense that if taken care of, it will last. It's not a material that's going to deteriorate. And so the thing that is different with ceramics is obviously it's breakable. So you take some of the checks that it has with some of the versatility and some of the uses that you can have, some of the different ways that you can use it in the oven, baking, but it is breakable. And so you just have to be careful with things like cooking and washing, transferring, and also just thermally, like things that you necessarily wouldn't think about with like metal cookware. When you're taking something that's really hot and you're putting it directly in cold water, ceramics react differently than metal would to something like that. I like to think of it like kind of like wood, like if you have a piece of really dry wood, that's like dried out, or you have it outside, that's very different than a piece of wet wood that's like kind of soaked it up. When you transfer that, sometimes when it expands, it can like crack. And so similar with ceramics is you just have to be careful with like extreme temperature changes. Like when you're cooking with 100% ceramic on the stove, immediately transferring it into cold water and hearing that like sizzle, that's something that could like potentially cause a thermal crack. But those are all things that are just kind of become second nature as you begin to use it. Is just, all right, I'm done cooking, I'm going to let it sit on the stove, I'm going to come back, or even I'm going to put match the temperature, when it comes down a little bit, and put some like really hot water in there and clean it, on the stove. Take obviously like crazy would be like taking something from the freezer and starting to cook with it. Like that ceramics is just going to behave a little bit differently than something like that. But as far as use and care, I mean, cleanup is, we would say that for the most part, other than the first couple weeks of using it, you might have some initial definite kind of like hiccups when you're first using 100% ceramic, just because you are cooking at lower heats. You are allowing the surface to actually heat up for a little bit longer, because it doesn't kind of conduct right away, like say an aluminum pan would. You're using, like room temperature oil. You're using the right oils, typically like avocado or coconut or olive oil. And then the actual cooking process might add, some more time to actually seeing your food cooked, just because ceramic cooks more efficiently at lower temperatures. And so we always say like low and slow is the way to go. That's like our little slogan. But I think what you'll find is two things: is as you start to cook with it, it becomes second nature. But two, it just marries you to the process of cooking your food in a way that is not rushed.
Yeah.
Kind of sitting back and preparing things in a way that maybe is just a little bit different. And one of the things that I do is when I'm heating up my cookware is I go and I do my prep while my cookware is heating up, and so the order of operations is just different than like putting down a metal pan. I used to do that growing up, put down a metal pan, you crank up the heat to high, you throw in your egg or you throw in and it's done, throw it in the sink and you're like, and one, cooking really fast and really high is not great for is not a great way to cook food. It's not a really healthy way to cook food. But it's also, you have no relationship with your cookware at that point. It's just a medium to get things done really fast. And so cooking with ceramic, it is going to be a little bit slower. There is going to be a little bit of song and dance with actually the process of cooking with it. But now I really don't even think about it at all.
It's kind of like preheating the oven a little bit. You have to preheat the oven beforehand. You kind of just put it on there and preheat it. One question we did get was, how does it compare to cast iron? Which I think is really, I think it's very similar, having used the cookware for a little bit, because you do have to kind of heat it up a little bit beforehand. Mm-hmm. I will say, I think that cast iron is harder for things like eggs, or it really truly is non-stick, or it is stick. It's not non-stick whatsoever. It is really hard to work with. It's like better with meats and like rougher things. I really do find that the Xtrema Cookware does a lot better with things like that, where even though it's not technically non-stick, it acts more like that when you do heat it up correctly. And it's way easier to do things like eggs or something more fragile on it. But I would say besides that, it's very similar. Washing wise, it's a lot easier because cast iron has the whole, you don't really wash it with soap ordeal. So that takes a little bit longer to like re-oil it and season it afterwards. So obviously there's no process like that, but I would say they're very similar in the sense that it's the same heat wise, thermally, what you're saying, and also being able to, the versatility of going in the, oven to your, to the stove top or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, 100% ceramic is like a really honest friend that like always tells it like it is. Like the margin of error might be a little bit more slim, but it gives you, in the end, you would want that, because it gives you instant feedback. Like a lot of the times that when I first started to use it, after having used it like metal and nonstick, earlier in my life, like the margin of error, it just kind of gives you that instant feedback where it's like, wow, like that egg stuck. And you're like, man, why did that happen? And then you start to see like, okay, I didn't let it heat up for mm-hmm. long. I used like really cold oil that I had, or I used, something that I had, like ghee that I had put in the fridge or something like that. Or I didn't oil the pan well enough, or that kind of process, you start to get really good because of the instant feedback, whereas other pans try to eliminate any sort of feedback.
That's interesting.
Absorb all of the errors, and that's really what a nonstick coating is. It's like, listen, cook however the heck you want, whether you're doing it right, whether you're actually heating it up how we say or not, like the coating is there as the ultimate safety net for you to just do whatever, and then be able to clean it off. And if
that's fun,
it works until it doesn't, and then the nonstick coating is not nonstick anymore. But ceramic just is like that honest friend. It just gives you that instant feedback. The thing that's interesting is that I would say is different is even from our 100% ceramic cookware and other, there is another company, Emile Henry, that is in France that's been around for a while that does have a 100% ceramic product. Very different designs than us, but their ceramic is made with a different clay, and so it's actually it's more porous, which means that you actually have to season it. So they require sort of almost like I don't know if it would say like blanching, but you have to almost like uh, heat it up with like milk or dairy in order to close some of those pores. That it, with some of the cookware, they call it crazing, where you can see like some
Yeah,
cracks glaze, and that's cosmetic, but that is a completely different clay. It's also fired at a lower temperature than ours is. But ours is different is that you don't have to season it because of how non-reactive it is and because of how high fired it is.
that's
So
nice.
I think if you're using cast iron, you have to um, you have to use it right, and you have to understand that process, because if you don't take care of it correctly, um, it can leach significant amounts of iron. If if you're not seasoning it properly, if you're not cleaning it properly, if you're not keeping up with that. And I know that there's a lot of people that do. There's some people that don't, and so yeah, I mean, it will leach crazy amounts of iron in if you are cooking the wrong foods, using the wrong process, and stuff like that. And so you don't have to necessarily worry about that with 100% ceramic. Like if you cook tomato sauce, or you cook a lemon marsala sauce or something like that, like you're not going to have acidity add any danger to structure materials leaching.
Right.
Uh,
That's nice.
More so uh, actual performance of cooking when you're talking about things of temperature. With cast iron, you cook a red sauce for a long, long time. You might have a metallic taste in your food. Um, so you just have to be more aware of some of the order of operations to prevent some
True.
of the, leaching.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point. That's really interesting. Well, we're out of time here, but I thank you everybody who have stuck around this long, and we're going to be posting this on my feed. So if you're watching us on the feed, for sticking around and watching it then, there is going to be a discount code that we're doing for the next 48 hours. Is that correct? 48?
Yeah.
Okay, 48 hours is going to be Clean Living Mom. I'm going to be posting the details about it in my stories and below if you're watching us afterwards. It's going to be 10% off. I've got a link that I'll also give you guys, so that's really exciting. But Erik, thank you so much for your time and answering questions. I'm sure we're going to be having you on here again because this was
Yeah.
really fun.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you so much to your community. You guys are a part of the education process that's so necessary. So appreciate you. And yeah, would love to come on again.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erik.
Thank you so much.